I'm still pretty early in my healing journey, about 11 months post-explant. I'm going more the holistic route. And that was a big challenge for me because I had been a nurse, for 20 years, and I had a lot of trust in the medical profession. And so that's when I started getting well. I was in a state where I wasn't sure what was wrong. I wasn't sure where to find the help I needed, but I knew I was in the right direction.
Well, hey there, everyone. My name is Dawn Funk, and I am so excited that you guys are joining us today for another episode of Win with BII. And, that stands for Women in Need with Breast Implant Illness, or just how you can win if you've got BII. And, and that's what's exciting, is that more and more women are waking up. They are finding out about breast implant illness. They are connecting the dots with all of their crazy health issues. And more importantly, they are finding hope and help and support and a community. And so I know, just from my personal experience, like, it was the community and just brave people that shared their stories. And so I am so honored to get to just pay that forward and just help other people, give them a platform to share their story, to share their testimony, so that we can raise more awareness together. So my guest today is absolutely amazing, and I cannot wait for you to hear from Beth. And man, she's got so many incredible things that make up her life and who she is. And I'm so honored and excited to just join her today. And so I don't want to steal her thunder, because I know she's going to tell you all of the great things that she does. But so just please welcome my friend, Beth Anderson. She lives down in sunny Florida. In fact, you can see she's got a beautiful tan if you're watching YouTube. I'm pale up here in Cincinnati, but Beth, just thank you so much for being on here today. And just go ahead and just tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and of course, tell us your breast implant illness story.
Okay, thanks, Dawn. First of all, thanks so much for asking me. I'm truly honored to be a part of what you're doing. And my name's Beth Anderson. I'm a nurse, I'm a health coach, I'm an energy healer, and I've also done some modeling for the BII community for a company called Pretty Lovely You, which was started by one of our breast implant illness sisters. So that's kind of who I am. I haven't been practicing as a nurse for about a year. I'm still pretty early in my healing journey. About 11 months post-explant. So, and actually the last couple of days have been a little bit rough for me, and I was a little reluctant to come on camera and share, but then, I felt it on my heart that so many of us see the stories when people are farther along in their healing, and a lot of people don't go on camera when they're all red and rashy. Maybe it's not too obvious, but yeah, part of my symptoms have been coming up recently. But to go back and start, I guess my story would start in 2013. That's when I got my breast implants. And basically, through a lack of self-acceptance, I made a decision that would change my life and pretty much wreck my life as I knew it, but also open the door for a whole new life. which is how I try to look at it. So I got the implants in May of 2013, and I was 40. I was about to be 41. So until I learned about breast implant illness, all of the things that I experienced were just kind of blamed on being in my 40s and falling apart, which is what it seemed was happening. As early as a couple of days post-op, I was starting to have symptoms already, though I didn't recognize it for what it was. My vision became blurry. I was like at my 2-day post-op appointment, and my vision was blurry, and I mentioned that to the surgeon, and he just reassured me that the anesthesia might have that effect and take some time to wear off, but it didn't improve. It kept getting worse. And then I developed scleritis and episcleritis, which was red nodules on my eyes. And I ended up having to see a lot of eye specialists for that. And as that progressed, and I had some more symptoms with painful joints and back pain, things like that, they started suggesting that I get some testing for autoimmune condition. So I was tested, I would say about a year after the implants is when that happened, and I made it to my primary care to start finding out what was going on with my eyes and my joints and everything. And they did find an autoimmune condition. It was found through a mutation of the gene. It's like HLA-B27, I think. And that is something that occurs with people with ankylosing spondylitis, which is what they diagnosed me with, and so that ended up being a huge ordeal. It was really progressive and really quickly. I had a lot of back pain and joint pain and inflammation. Eventually that led to me having lumbar stenosis, losing like function of my left leg, having to have lumbar surgery. That happened by like 2017. But also with the vision problems, I started having just not feeling myself. I was getting really depressed, which, that can go along with a chronic illness. So that wasn't too unusual, I guess. But mine was accompanied by a lot of anxiety and then panic attacks, and the mental and psychological part of it really progressed too. I had to see so many specialists. It started with the eye doctor. And then with the autoimmune condition, I was going to a rheumatologist, and then I was getting, injections for that. And then I was seeing a psychiatrist. I started getting rashes, itching constantly. I would react to everything. I couldn't get in the pool anymore. The chlorine would irritate my skin. I was constantly scratching. So then I was going to the dermatologist, and all sorts of different creams and medications and things to try to help with that. And then to the allergist, I developed, reflux, irritable bowel, all sorts of it was just like, as it progressed, like all these other symptoms just kept adding and adding and adding. And it got really bad. I'm just trying to, I didn't really tell you all that in chronological order, but so to sum it up, all of that occurred over a span of 7 years. And toward the end of 7 years, everything was progressing pretty bad. In 2017, a lot of things happened. I had my back surgery. I also had an abdominal mammogram where they had to do a breast biopsy. And that breast biopsy was really traumatic. It was really painful. I had a huge hematoma that didn't heal, and I kept going back, and I just kept being reassured. But I knew I almost felt like they had punctured the implant, but they said, no, that didn't happen. And in fact, when I had my explant surgery, they were intact. But something must have occurred during that biopsy to cause the symptoms to come more rapidly. Because from 2017, when that happened on, around the same time I had enrolled in college again, I was going back to pursue another degree. And just the, not just mental health, but cognitive symptoms. I was having trouble finding my words. I couldn't focus on my studies. I couldn't retain information. And, going back to the professionals, so then I got more diagnosis and more medications. And it seemed like the trend for me was that they just kept wanting to treat the symptoms. All of these specialists, they wanted to treat the symptoms to try to find me some relief, and it wasn't occurring. In fact, the more medications we put on top of everything, the more side effects I had, the more medications I needed for those. So by the end of 2019, I was in pretty bad shape. And I actually reached out and had a consult with a naturopathic person. And I identified at that time, and by then I had been studying and practicing Reiki and energy healing. And part of that, when I began that journey, was, that it would be a healing journey, and that I would begin to shed everything that no longer served my highest good. And that's exactly what happened. I had no idea that it would encompass so much, but so that's what I was feeling August of 2019 when I had that consult. And initially I just felt like I needed to get off all the pharmaceuticals because they had me in a state that I did not feel myself, and I was just like a toxic chemical mess. So my first step was starting to wean off of all those medications. And I did that from August of 2019 until November. And in November, I was able to find a holistic MD. And at that point, he too, agreed that, getting off the medications was a good step. And he was pretty experienced in just detoxing the body, not necessarily specifically to do with breast implants, because I didn't know at that point that was another layer that needed to be addressed. So he started helping me, and I started going more the holistic route. And that was a big challenge for me because I had been a nurse, for 20 years, and I had a lot of trust in the medical profession. And like most people do, we trust what the doctor says, and those are our providers. But I was in a state where I was so sick and I wasn't getting the answers, so, and I just felt led by my heart to go down a more holistic path. And so that's when I started getting well, really. He helped me with some detox protocols. And as I was starting to, recover from getting off of all those medications, I just kept coming across like stumbling blocks. I wasn't healing as quickly as I expected. So I knew there was more to that layer. During that time, I started losing all my fillings, and I had to go get another root canal. I had already had a couple of root canals, but that's something that was really difficult. It was really unusual, the reaction I had. I had so much intense pain down my neck and my shoulders, and the dentist was really kind of like, I almost felt like I was treated like a hypochondriac at times because no one could put their finger on what was wrong with me. And that does a lot to a person, it makes you question yourself. So I was in a state where I wasn't sure what was wrong. I wasn't sure where to find the help I needed, but I knew I was in the right direction. And by that point, I was so weak. Like, I was still working, but I used to climb 3 flights of stairs every day to my office. I couldn't do that anymore. I was getting short of breath. I couldn't open the steel door to get in my office building. And in the end, I was just like making it to work and then laying my head on my desk and resting, and feeling dishonest about earning a paycheck. But I was just literally so fatigued and exhausted and weak that I wasn't functioning, in my normal capacity. I was having fender benders. I was having panic attacks while I was driving. I was having vertigo. But what happened next was I got connected with you, Dawn, in a roundabout way. And on one of those days, I was sitting at my desk and I was on Facebook, and a mutual friend of ours had shared a video that you had put out there. And, thank goodness, in years, because I had never imagined that all of that was connected, until I heard your story. So that was a huge pivotal point, in me beginning to get well. I was already on the road there, but I never would have found the way, unless I came across that. So once I knew that, it was a huge relief. On one hand, I knew there was an answer. I knew I wasn't dying. I knew people were getting well. I went to the Facebook platforms and started looking up the social media, and I was super excited, and I wanted to share this information and say, hey, look, but unfortunately for a lot of women, they have the support that they need when that happens, but I did not. My husband at the time didn't understand. He didn't, he was pretty much done with me being sick and not knowing the answer. And so I didn't get the support from that. I tried to take it like to my primary care physician and printed off all these pages. And it was just like, I don't know enough about that, or I don't understand that enough to treat. And eventually I ended up having to leave her as a patient of primary care. And I went to the holistic MD, and he became my primary care. But even still, I was never really able to find any medical providers that were, educated and familiar with what we go through, So it was a long, tough road. I had a lot of challenges. As soon as I started trying to book these surgeries and get to my pre-ops, this surgery, but the reason I said plural is because for me, that's when the COVID shutdown hit. And so this was considered an elective cosmetic procedure. And those were not allowed in the state of Florida at that time. So I had 3 different surgeries scheduled with different surgeons, and they were all postponed. Well, the last one, the 3rd one, I ended up having. And so from February until the end of April was a real challenging time for me, because to know the answer and not be able to get the procedure done quick enough was just like torture. That's really when I started going within and doing some self-healing and I kept studying with my, natural and holistic path that I was on, and just really learning to help myself, between that and the support of the groups on the social media of the women who have been through it before me. Thank goodness for those things. So, and April 23rd of 2020 is when I had my explant, and everything went pretty well. I did have some complications post-op, and I think a lot of that is just because I didn't have the help that maybe I should have. I was trying to do things too soon. I had some pulled muscles in my chest. I had to have drains for quite a while. But physically, I felt so much better. Like the neck pain, like I used to have to wear that airplane weird neck pillow, and that was gone. The joint pain was gone. My skin turned clear. All the rashes and itchy stuff was gone. And I felt myself, like there was just something that happened. But my healing, it kind of came to a halt, like with other areas, like the neurological symptoms, the brain fog, the vision, all the stuff around my head wasn't healing. And I kept trying to search and figure out what was wrong. And I actually, through one of the Facebook sites, there was some ladies who talked about dental issues and root canals and metal fillings. And those are some things that we have to look into sometimes when we're healing. So I did, and come to find out, not just that last root canal I got, but the other 2 were all abscess. And there was so much inflammation in my mouth that the palate had deteriorated. I had a big hole in the palate of my mouth and the bone. So, and thank goodness I was able, through my holistic doctor, to find a biological dentist who does the holistic work. And he removed the root canals, and he had to rebuild the roof of my mouth with bone graft. So that was another pretty extensive procedure that happened in September 1st. So I'm about 6 months out from that procedure now. And once I got that taken care of, I think my healing really took off. There was a lot of psychological factors. What I experienced was pretty traumatic. So I had to really do a lot of internal work and healing those wounds and that sort of thing, because it's all connected, you know. And I find that I'm really sensitive, you know, my body and mind and spirit are like super in tune. So there's a lot of psychological issues that will cause me physical reactions, and that's just natural. But that still happens now. Um, now, so that happened in September, and then now we're into March. So over the past month, I've seen a great deal in healing. The one thing that has been persistent is the reactions. And again, it's mostly just reacting. It's my body trying to tell me what's not serving my highest good. And the things I react to are things like gluten and dairy, and you know, things that I've learned that for my body aren't the best source of nutrients, you know. So generally I try to stay on a pretty regular routine with my nutrition. My body seems to prefer like a raw vegan diet. But when I cheat, I definitely can tell, you know. So more recently, that's the thing that's been getting me down is the reactions, because I will swell, I'll get hives, and then they'll kind of ooze, and then there'll be like a crust, and then for like one episode of having pizza, it's like a 4 or 5 day process to recover from that. And not only that, when I'm having the rashes, I'll be like in the bed with just total fatigue and not really able to function. And so it is still happening. And but I'm really hopeful, you know, especially over the last few months, I've seen so much improvement in my health, and it's been a great learning experience just to learn about the different things that are good for us and that aren't good for us, and the things I had to learn about just the healthcare industry that I dedicated my life to for over 20 years, you know. And that's opened up doors for me to start down, you know, some other career paths and opportunities that I think are more in alignment with my true calling. So even though it's been a tough road, I try to always see like the silver lining, and what can I learn from this, and what is God trying to put in my path, you know, to benefit. So that's kind of where I'm at now with things. I look forward to more healing, and just my anticipation is getting to a place where I'm well enough to start giving back to the BII community. You know, I've done a little modeling thing, which was what I could do at the time. But, you know, I've watched as the women go to the FDA, I've watched as people, you know, get on these platforms like you're doing, and I love it. I love to see it. And I'm just hopeful that I'll just continue to heal so that I can get more active and doing the same sort of thing.
Gosh, this has been amazing, and I feel like we're soul sisters. Our journeys are very similar, and you know, especially when you were just talking about the after part. So, you know, just like you, I mean, I woke up and I'm like, oh my gosh, the joint pain, my hip doesn't hurt anymore, you know, my chest isn't so heavy. But you know, just like you, I have been on this journey with just some lingering annoying symptoms, very similar, still vision issues, still for me it's a histamine issue that I just, and I'm also going through menopause now, which that probably doesn't help the situation. But you know, even as recent as just a couple weeks ago, I mean, and I'm 2 years out almost, it's like I would just complain to my husband. I'm like, gosh, when am I ever going to be back to the old me, right? And, you know, it's just, I think that's part of it too, is I think we go through like PTSD with this. I really do. And I definitely agree with you that like it's the mind, and, you know, and just getting your mind right, and just having that expectant, you know, healing mindset. So, but, you know, I'm so glad you shared about just the continued sensitivities and really just knowing your body, because what I discovered recently is that my body doesn't like peanut butter, and I didn't know that. And I had, you know, and that's the weird thing, you guys, is as you go through detox waves, and that's, you know, really what it is. And I remember reading about that in the groups that, you know, it takes years. I mean, and you go through detox waves where your symptoms kind of resurface and can maybe even be worse. And I've definitely gone through those, and I've noticed that, some foods that didn't bother me a month ago, now all of a sudden do. When you were talking about pizza, I'm like, I can't do tomatoes again all of a sudden. It's just so weird. But so yeah, so you just have to be patient and really listen to your body, like you said. So I love that. And you know, I love what you said too, that, you know, you're still going through some issues, and yet, you know, you felt really called to come in here in the middle of your journey, not feeling 100%, because you know that your story needs to be heard. And I want to also just you know, help you put it in perspective that, man, you're doing a lot just by being on here and sharing your story. And so just remember, like, don't beat yourself up over that. You'll give back, you know, when it feels right for your body, but you're already doing a lot. And I'm just going to share this, that I have many friends that have had their breasts removed because they were sick, and they are too scared to even share their story. And I don't want to judge them for that. And I know everyone has to do what's best for them, but there are a lot of women who are too scared to even do what you're doing. And
Right.
so I just think the world of you for sharing all of everything that you've shared so far. So, you know, a couple of things again, just relating, and then we'll move on to the next question. But, you know, when I was super sick too, like you, I'm going to doctor after doctor after doctor, and they're loading me up with medications. You know, I was on tons of, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh crap, what are they? Antibiotics. I was on tons of antibiotics because the sinus issue that I had, my sinuses were just horrible. And like all those rounds of antibiotics destroyed my gut.
Okay.
I mean, to the point that here I am, right? Almost 2 years out, and my gut, I am still trying to heal my gut. So it is definitely a process, you guys. And, you know, I've had to go to New York to a holistic dentist as well. I had massive dental surgeries last year. So again, if you've had an explant already and you're still not getting to where you want to be, definitely look at that next layer. And I'm so glad you brought that up, Beth, about getting the infection and old root canals and metal out of your mouth. So super important. And one last little thing is, I remember when I went to my my Dr. Jerry Curatola, that's who I went to in New York City. And when I walked in, and I had done some Zooms and things, but when I walked in, he's like, "Hey, Dawn, nice to meet you in person." He said, "Can I ask you a question? Do you know if you have the MTHFR gene?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I do." He's like, "I figured." He's like, I figured you did." And guys, that's another thing here. I just want to plant that seed, is that I remember that word. I'd never heard of that gene or that genetic testing until the BII groups. And that was something a lot of the women were like, see if you have this MTHFR, because a lot of the women that get sick do have that. And it also means that we just can't handle metals. We don't detox as efficiently. And so that's why the dental work, the previous dental work, can play into that. So, you know, if you have never looked into that, definitely look into the MTHFR testing. You can reach out to me if you have more questions about that, but that also can impact your healing, because there's certain supplements that you should be taking to help you, and foods that you should be avoiding. So just a whole little side note. But anyway, so let's talk. I know, just listening to your story, oh my gosh, it just took me back. Just how long every day seemed, you know, like when you really just felt like you were just fighting for your life. And it's just gut wrenching. But, you know, when you look back at your journey, and again, 7 years, you guys, like, I can't even imagine. I was only really sick for maybe 6 months. So I can't even imagine going through what you've gone through for 7 years. But when you look back at that, what was the hardest part, or what was the most frustrating part? And we kind of heard some of that in your story, but maybe just take a minute or two and just kind of share that part.
I would say the most frustrating thing was just the lack of knowledge and familiarity that is found with the healthcare system, the providers. There's like no specialists for VII. And I didn't even know it was a thing until, you know, the very end. And it took a little bit of time for me to piece all that together. But like all of those specialists and all of those things, I do believe in my heart were related. I was healthy before then, and I'm healthy afterwards, you know? So it had to be that, and it's just really frustrating that to be dismissed continually, and then it does something to a person. You, like I said, you start to question yourself, and the psychological, and in a way, it's sort of like gaslighting if you look at into psychological abuse, because, in the end, I didn't feel like I was sick. I felt like I was crazy and I was lazy. And that's because that's the way I was being treated, not just by providers, but friends, family, people just don't understand. And I think, that's the frustrating thing, that it's not recognized as a condition because it's not an ICD-9 billable diagnosis code, basically.
Well, and I struggled so much with that too. I mean, my kids would make fun of me, every time I'd have a panic attack. It was so embarrassing. I mean, I remember one time being out Christmas shopping with my son Blake, and I had a horrible panic attack in the store. And, he was just like, "Oh my God, Mom," it was just like embarrassing. And I get it. He's a teenager, but like people just think that you've lost your mind. And
Yeah.
And like you said, I mean, and especially when you don't know what it is, like you're trying to get answers and you don't understand. So you've got that going on, and then everyone else around you thinks you're crazy. So no, that's a very real, frustrating part of it for sure. And, that's where it's like, I just kept saying, you know what, but like, God knows, like, that's the thing that get me through. Like, okay, God knows I'm not crazy. He knows that this is real. Like, that's where my faith had to just be a huge part of that, because it is really hard. So I know that, as awful as everything has been for you, what I do love about your story is that you're using the struggles to now bring goodness and light into the world. And it's allowed you to pivot into a kind of like a newfound passion, right? And so, you talked about how you were a nurse in traditional medicine for 20 years. And like I've trusted my doctors and all of that, but I have to tell you, going through this experience has totally changed my mindset about, I want to go to holistic doctors and naturopath doctors, and I believe in now in treating the root cause and not just treating the symptoms. And so it's really got me to, just empower myself. And, what a great book I'm reading right now is How Not to Die, and it's a guy who was a doctor that was frustrated with traditional medicine, because of the whole, prescribing medications and not empowering people about the benefits of eating healthy. Like, let's eat healthy, and then, whatever. But so when you look at your healing, and I know you're still in the thick of it, what has really helped you though with your healing physically and mentally, as you're kind of in this process right now, Beth?
I would say it would be gaining the ability to just go within, to know myself, to be able to use my intuition, listen to my body, and to recognize and own that power within, because so many of us don't. I didn't for the longest time, and it has been an empowering experience, and just being willing to put my healing first, no matter what. I've had to walk away from a whole lot of stuff that I thought was important, in my life before, to embrace my healing. And I just knew that God has everything in store for me that's so much better anyway,
Amen. And he's going to, use your story to bless so many people. And now, it's just amazing, how he's going to be using you for his good and his glory. So, all right. So I know we probably got some people watching this or listening to this that, or maybe where you were, they've now identified, okay, I think this is what's, causing me problems. And of course, I'm sure they're confused, just like we were. Like, is this really the answer? Because, no doctor will say it's your breast implants. I mean, 99% of them, it's not a recognized medical condition. So someone who is considering getting an explant, what would be a piece of advice for them, maybe with choosing the right surgeon, or even just deciding to move forward? Like, what's just a piece of advice you would give to someone out there who's now figured out this is what it is, and what should they do next?
Yeah, once you identify the problem and you know that the explant is the first step in getting well, I think that the most logical thing would be, what I did, what a lot of ladies do is utilize the resources on the support groups and use the doctors on the list. And you can usually search the doctor's name in the search bar, and you pull up all sorts of shares and stories from women that have used that doctor. I've even had people reach out to me individually because they followed some shares that I had, and reach out to people that have used that surgeon. I think, of course, make sure that it's someone who's knowledgeable about BII and has done the proper procedure, that does the proper procedure with the capsulectomy. Ideally, it would be great to find a doctor that believes in it, because that's not always the case. They may know about it, but to really believe in it. Even the surgeon I had, he was on the list and he recognized that there was definitely something going on there, but maybe I'm just still searching for that validation. I don't know that it'll ever come, but yeah, I think that the more the surgeon you choose, the more that they're familiar with and seem to be understanding of the whole process and what's going on with your body, the better off you are, because you definitely want to find validation in any area that you can.
It's so true. Well, and like you said, you want to make sure you go to a surgeon who's going to remove everything.
Yes.
So that's so important, because you're spending all that money and you want to get healthy. And if they don't take out the entire capsule and there's stuff left, you could still remain sick. So that's so important. And I know that, there's a doctor here in Ohio, Dr. Fang, up in Cleveland. She's one of the few that just exclusively does this. And then I believe Dr. Chen, I think that's how you say his name, out in California. I think those are the only two that I know of that are exclusively for explants, and, really believe.
And they've done studies too.
Yes. Which is
great. Huge. If I had my, choice and it wasn't COVID shutdown, I probably may have gone with.
And I tried to go with Dr. Fang, but she was on a year waiting list. Mm-hmm. And like you said, once I knew what I knew, every day waiting was torture. I just wanted them out. And so I'm
it's an urgency.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I was really sick for 6 months, and I'm like, there's no way I'm waiting a year, even if she's the best. So, I ended up going with Dr. Dev down in Jupiter, Florida. And, I really do feel like he does believe in breast implant illness. And I know he's done a lot of explant surgeries. So I feel like there's more and more doctors. And actually, let me see if I can grab my clipboard. So I'm really excited, you guys, because one of my future guests, and it may even be my very next episode, I actually am going to have Dr. Amy DeRosa. And she is a surgeon up in Michigan, and just a crazy connection how God works. A good friend of mine, it's her cousin. And so I've seen her name on the list. And so she has agreed to be on my podcast. So
wonderful.
I'm really, really excited about that. So just to hear, a doctor's perspective. And again, this is awesome if more and more doctors start, bringing the credibility to this, problem. And, and you and I both know, Beth, I hate to say it, but it all comes down to money. It's big money, putting in implants, and, society and social media makes us feel like we need to look a certain way to be attractive. And, so it's a whole awful thing. And then of course, why would they want to bring awareness that this is causing these things when it's huge money for the industry? So It's really unfortunate, but again, enough people out there sharing their story will help prevent people from doing this to their bodies. So all right, so as we wrap this up, and I have to tell you, this has been amazing, and I just know that there's people listening that are going to be listening to this and this is going to be the light bulb that goes off for them. And that just gets me so excited. So any last words, Beth, or anything on your heart that you just want to share to the listeners as we, just get ready to close this out?
I would just like to encourage anybody that's going through this, to really to really focus on going within. If you have a faith, focus on that faith. For me, the greatest gift from this whole journey has been finding that alignment with like my higher self, and knowing what does and doesn't serve my highest good. And that's only been possible through going through this. So, I mean, I don't regret it, because it had to happen for me to get to where I am. It's just a part of my healing journey. But hopefully, someone will hear and get that little message that they need, and just trust your heart, trust your gut, and that would be my advice.
Wow, that's so good. And actually, I'm gonna grab my little. Guys, I'm like a hot mess here. So, but I have to share this because right here, this is a sign that I look at every single day. God is good all the time. And as I think about just what you shared and my own journal, like, yeah, it truly was through prayer and God answering that prayer, showing me a sign that this is what was making me sick. Because like you said, no doctor is going to tell you. So you have to decide from within and take that leap of faith. And now when I think about just my own healing and my own, just like I said, I think we go through PTSD and just getting our minds back right. Because I don't know about you, but like, it's just this panic, right? I mean, I do really feel like sometimes I have become a hypochondriac because of what I went through. Every little thing, I'm like, oh gosh, what's wrong is something wrong with me? Even though I feel so much better, and I know that you do too, but it has really grown my faith. And like, especially lately, I'm like, man, I can really feel the God growth. I can really feel the healing happening because I can feel the positive mindset just growing and growing when it comes to just believing that I'm already healed, I mean, I'm already healed, like believing that. And, so it's just getting that everything in alignment with that, with the belief of that. So, well, I appreciate you so much. And
thank you, Dawn.
Has truly been just amazing. And again, I'm just so excited for people that are going to hear your story. They're going to be inspired. And, just I'm going to ask this too. So like if someone wanted to get in contact with you, if maybe something that you shared, because I know you mentioned that, you've had people reach out to you. Is there an email or just some way that they could contact you? And I can have my friend Kayla put that in the notes on the podcast and YouTube.
Yeah, I can give her my email address.
Okay.
And we can add that in.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So we'll get her email and we'll put that in the notes. So if you guys do, if there's something that she shared that you wanted to connect with her, you'll have the ability.
And hopefully down the road, I'll be doing more, and career-wise, and I'll be able to maybe visit again and share some of that so that people can reach out to me for services.
Oh, that'd be amazing. Yes. I love your vision and just paying it forward. So thank you so much. All right. Well, thank you guys again for being on here. Win with BII. Again, a huge thank you to Beth Anderson for being our special guest today. And, just excited to join you guys again. Like I said, hopefully next time I think we'll have the doctor from Michigan on here, which will be exciting. And if you haven't listened to the previous episodes, oh my gosh, you got to go back and check those out. My friend Roxanne, who I had last time, she is, one of the people that actually got cancer from her implants. And so definitely check that out. She had the textured implants. And then my very first guest was Christina, who actually heads up one of my most favorite breast implant illness groups. So go back and check out that very first episode with Christina. So thank you guys so much. Thank you again, Beth. And everyone.
Pleasure. Thanks, Dawn.
Wonderful night. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.